Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we react to the Sunday morning news shows that we watch so that you don't have to. I'm Katie Halper.
I'm Aaron Maté. And Katie, I think we should need to change the tagline to "We ruin our Sundays to brighten your Monday morning," because literally watching these shows is tough and it ruins our Sunday, but we do it to brighten your Monday morning. So the least you could do, everybody, is give us a like. Just give us a like for ruining our Sundays.
Just give us a like. Yeah,
bringing these clips.
Exactly. I like, Aaron, if I could modify your logo suggestion, we ruin our Sunday to brighten your Monday.
That's right. I'm with it.
Yeah. It rhymes, yeah. And we also brighten your Monday, not just by giving you these reactions, but also we have a party right after. And that is at Callin, and that's a free party that you get to go to. No admission price, no admission fee. You also don't even have to be 21 years old. Although I don't know the rule. No, yeah. Bring your it's a family friendly show if your family is into politics. So yeah. So smash the like. Subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/usefulidiots. Subscribe to our Substack and locals at usefulidiots.substack.com, usefulidiots.locals.com. Get bonus content, extended interviews. You're definitely going to want to see our extended interview with Matt Taibbi. You also get a weekly Thursday Throwdown segment where we go over more media. So what's not to like, what's not to love. That's it. It's a love fest from Useful Idiots. It's a love fest, yeah. So speaking of love fest, should we get into a man that we love dearly?
Absolutely.
None other than the Chuckster, Chuck Todd.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's meet the press.
And a good Sunday morning. It was 10 years ago this very month that the Senate's so-called Gang of Eight rolled out an immigration reform plan that they believed could finally pass Congress.
By the way, just listen for Marco Rubio's signature dry mouth. Okay.
We all wish we didn't have this problem, but we do, and we have to fix it. Because leaving things the way they are, that's the real amnesty.
I think 2013 is the year of immigration reform.
But it was not, and the laws haven't changed. 2 years later, Donald Trump.
Fun fact about Lindsey Graham. So he says there that 2013 is the year of immigration reform. Well, he likes pronouncing years to be the year of blank because in 2017, that's when he went to Ukraine. And there's that clip of him meeting with Ukrainian soldiers. Right. He says to them, 2017 is going to be the year of offense.
Right.
So, he's really into pronouncing, the year of blank.
Right. I like it.
So 2013 was the year of immigration reform. 2017 was the year of offense. I wonder what 2023 will be for Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. What will that hold?
Maybe the year of war with China over Taiwan.
Oh, that's a possibility. Yeah.
Fingers crossed, everybody.
Yeah.
Trump would launch his presidential campaign, building his entire political identity on the issue of being tough on immigration and tough on the border. Trump even promised to wall off the nation's 2,000-mile southern border. And though the wall didn't...
I think Chuck's putting a little mildly about how he built his political identity. He also built it on bigotry and xenophobia. Right. It wasn't being tough on immigration. It was
right.
Also
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It
wasn't just law and order. Right. It was Mexicans and their rapists.
He's kind of bearing the lead there a little bit. He's putting a little fine to. He's wrapping it up in a little bow tie that it doesn't really deserve. But anyway.
Right.
Materialize his administration in an attempt at deterrence at the border, instituted policies that included separating migrant children from their parents and instituting the Remain in Mexico program, which sent migrants back to Mexico while seeking U.S. asylum.
But also, we should point out that Obama was, of course, the deporter-in-chief. And we should also give credit to Bill Clinton because he also instituted some of the most draconian immigration policies. He made it so that he set up guards, immigration officials, and also fences so that people who were seeking asylum or seeking to come to this country had to were rerouted into the Arizona desert where many of them died, which is disgusting. A disgusting policy. And he also made it a lot easier to deport people by making crimes deportable. So just want to give credit to the Dems also on this. All right.
Biden endorsed a sweeping immigration plan on his very first day in office. But the plan went nowhere, even though Democrats controlled both houses of Congress at the time. Instead, the administration has adopted several of the Trump policies he once criticized, including a transit ban, which will force some migrants to apply for asylum from their home countries. Now,
It's like basically Chuck's being like, oh yeah, footnote, all the things that we said that Trump was doing were like fascism and were the equivalent of, or like the, were unconscionable. Oh yeah, Democrats did the exact same thing too.
Right.
And they're not raising nearly as much of a stir about it. They just mention it now in passing. But it's,
No, keep going.
well, it just speaks to how hypocritical Democrats have been. Like, those images of AOC at the border
Right.
crying. We don't see those anymore.
Right.
We
But
just
it's
get now
interesting what
admissions in passing. Yeah.
What you said makes me think that maybe that's why in this very segment, they kind of, as you pointed out, they buried the lead a bit with Trump. They downplayed just how xenophobic he was. Maybe that's because they don't want to taint the Democrats with that same adjective.
Yeah.
Since the Democrats are continuing his policies.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, as Biden formally runs for a second term, the immigration issue, which he never mentioned this week in his announcement video, continues to be one of his toughest challenges. In 2021, more migrants crossed the southern border than in any year since at least 1960. And in 2022, the record was broken again. In 2 weeks, an emergency public health rule known as Title 42 that has allowed both the Trump and Biden administrations to expel migrants and block most access to asylum at the border since March of 2020, allegedly to prevent the spread of COVID, will officially expire. And the U.S. relationship with Mexico has perhaps, the government that is, has perhaps never been worse, with cooperation on the drug war at its lowest point in decades, thanks to an administration in Mexico that doesn't seem interested in dealing with the cartels. Fentanyl, which is produced in...
I don't know enough about Mexico to say whether that's true or not. Somehow I doubt it. I do know that AMLO is charting an independent course. He's called, for example, the freedom of Julian Assange. He's criticized the proxy war in Ukraine. He's criticized the blockade of Cuba. And what I suspect undermines cooperation with the U.S. and Mexico is there are powerful people in the U.S. who want to destabilize AMLO's government. And that makes it difficult to cooperate. That's what I suspect is actually.
Well, not to, at the risk of coming off as an AMLover. You like that? AMLover?
Good. That's good. Very good.
I didn't make it up. My friends in Mexico told me about that term. But basically, so he's against having like agents and military personnel operating on Mexican territory to interdict cartels because he believes in like sovereignty. And of course, the United States would never permit like agents of other governments on our soil enforcing that foreign laws, right? Like we always expect countries to do things that we would never do. And what he's also doing is he's like prioritizing public safety over going after drug kingpins. So because he wants to try to establish peace as opposed to fighting this war, drug war that Calderon kicked off in I think 2006. But again, it's just so it's so cynical and so nationalistic that we're mad at him because he stopped cooperating with the American agencies that fuel this drug war that kills so many U.S. citizens, but also so many Mexicans. I mean, when he points out the fentanyl, that's of course terrible. But what about the deaths of Mexicans because of the drug war? So yeah, good on AMLO.
Mexico with chemicals sourced from China is now the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 49, according to our friends at the Washington Post. This week, ahead of Title 42 expiration, the Biden administration announced new steps to stem unauthorized migration, including opening new processing centers in Colombia and Guatemala, creating a new family reunification program, and increasing assistance to counter smuggling. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas acknowledged there would be a border surge, but he also said it does not mean more migrants should come.
The smugglers' propaganda is false. Let me be clear. Our border is not open and will not be open after May 11th.
So wait, it's not open? and will not be open after May 11th. That makes it sound like it's open right now. It's like, so he's saying it's closed, but it's going to be especially closed after May 11th.
I wonder if by smuggler's propaganda he means that they're trying to say that because Title 42 is expiring, it's going to be a free for all after May 11th. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I'm not so up on smuggler's propaganda, but what I do know is that
Smuggler playbook.
the smuggler playbook.
SPB, yeah.
What I do know is that the cable news shows never, ever, ever acknowledged the U.S. role in
Right.
destabilizing Central America and causing conditions that force people to flee. So like trying to overthrow governments and imposing sanctions like in Venezuela and propping up horrible governments like in Honduras, as was the case after the coup of 2009, that never gets discussed. So it's
Right.
always just like it's always just taken as fact that there's this migration crisis, but there's no reflection whatsoever on what the U.S. did to contribute to that crisis. Zero. It's never ever mentioned. Nothing.
Right. And also, I mean, out of the four countries that are bringing the most people in, 3 of those 4 countries are countries we're sanctioning. So Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba. And what happened to the root causes? Remember Kamala Harris and her great immigration speeches where she said that we were looking into the root causes. We had to get to the root causes. Also, her great statement of "do not come." Really great, very effective way to deal with immigration. But what happens to that? Like, what about the root causes? Like you just brought up, the destabilization or the sanctions. I mean, sanctions are just such a direct way of helping make more people seek refuge here when you're living under sanctions. If we cared about that, we'd obviously would not be imposing sanctions. And then Mexico was subjected to NAFTA, and Haiti is the other country that a lot of people are coming from. And that's a country that we've, of course, helped destabilize. We've helped coup. And as you pointed out, like, Honduras became this booming femicide industry after the coup, which Hillary Clinton lied about and enabled.
And none of that ever gets discussed. It's just, so I think what happened with Kamala is she went looking for the root causes. She went and everyone told her the root cause maybe is your government constantly interfering and undermining our countries. And so I think the search for the root cause stopped there because they haven't talked about it since.
Right. Yeah. They're on the hunt, I think. Yeah. And Biden did say, someone put in the comments, Biden did say something about how it wouldn't matter if Haiti sank into the ocean.
He did say that back when he was a senator. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. That was a good line. Yeah.
Which is especially, on top of just how racist and condescending that is, it's especially disingenuous because if that's true, then why has the U.S. spent so much effort trying to destabilize Haiti forever? They've launched 2 coups in Haiti, not just one, but 2, both on Jean-Michel Aristide in 1990 and 2004. And I never saw Biden oppose those coups. So it not only was racist what he said, but it was actually dishonest because if for a country that supposedly doesn't care if Haiti sinks into the sea, they sure made a lot of effort into making sure Haiti was subjugated, including, and this was shown by WikiLeaks, that they were pressuring Haiti to keep a minimum wage workers' wages down. You know, a happy May Day, everybody. Like this is how the U.S. acknowledges like labor rights. They were pressuring Haiti to make sure that minimum wage workers didn't get like a very minimal increase from whatever it was, some tiny amount to another tiny amount.
Yeah.
So that's that's how it works.
That is a good way to celebrate May Day by remembering that. Yeah. So let's have a listen to what Mayorkas has to say.
Move to the announcement and what's coming in life after 42. There is already reports in Brownsville, Texas right now. Shelters are overwhelmed. The cities of Chicago and New York are already overwhelmed. What's May 12th going to look like if we're already overwhelmed before the expiration of Title 42?
A few things, Chuck. First of all, this is a really tough challenge and has been, as we all recognize, for years and years. We are seeing a level of migration, not just at our southern border, but throughout the hemisphere that is unprecedented. It is, I think, the greatest migration in our hemisphere since World War II. The president on day one delivered a solution. He delivered immigration reform legislation that we had hoped Congress would act on swiftly. They haven't. Within the constraints of a broken immigration system, we are doing so much. Our approach is to build lawful pathways, cut out the ruthless smugglers, deliver lawful pathways so people can access humanitarian relief without having to take the dangerous journey from their home countries. And at the same time, if they arrive at our southern border, in between ports of entry, we will deliver consequences.
You know, he points out that Biden had something that he proposed on day one and that Congress didn't pass it. But it was a Democratic Congress at the time, first of all, which is significant. So it's a bit on Biden, who ran as the senator who could work across the aisle. He was the creature of the Senate, unlike the socialist Bernie Sanders, right? That's what he ran on in 2020. But he can't even work on his own side of the aisle. Like, he can't even get the Democrats in line to vote for his proposal. So that's on Biden.
It's on Biden. It's totally on Biden. But they can't own up to that, so they have to pretend as if they've done something.
Right. Terrible. Well, let's hear from another person on immigration, friend of show, Tony Gonzalez, otherwise known as the prolific pro-lifer, who likes to tell us about how many kids he has. Let's hear what he has to say.
Humane to keep kids in detention centers with their parents.
Hold on.
It's humane to keep kids in detention centers with their parents.
I think there needs.
That is a bright blouse, by the way. Look at this. Like my
jacket.
My eyes hurt. Blazer.
Yeah.
My eyes hurt when I saw that.
It's very sunny.
Wow.
It's
very sunny.
Good Sunday morning, as I believe. Wasn't that Nancy Pelosi who said that? Good
That
morning, Sunday morning. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to wear shades.
In detention centers with their parents.
I think there needs to be a process where folks have their asylum claim heard in days, not years. And if they qualify for asylum, welcome to the United States. And if they don't, you have to send them back to their country of origin. What we can't do is what we're having now. Right now, we have tens of thousands of children that are just being released into this country. What is happening to these children, regardless of their legal identity? I mean, what is happening to these children? So we have to enforce the laws that are on the books, and we have to encourage those to come over legally and make it easier for folks to obtain work visas.
So this is another example of how unserious people are when they talk about immigration. Immigration in some ways is like the Democrats' abortion issue. It's this issue that they actually love having it as a problem. They don't want to solve immigration because then if they solved it, they wouldn't be able to like run on it the way that they do, which I would like to point out, by the way, because a lot of people don't get this. An issue can be cynically weaponized into a wedge issue, but that doesn't make it unimportant. So immigration does not become unimportant because it's weaponized, just like abortion does not become unimportant just because it's weaponized. So I think we should be careful not to dismiss those things. But, you know, again, like the Democrats are hypocrites on this, and so are the Republicans, because just this winter, Biden put up a plan to hire more judges to be able to process immigrants faster. And the Republicans voted against that. So if they really cared about this backlog, they, of course, wouldn't be doing that.
And I think they should listen to you, Katie, just like I think Face the Nation has listened to us in terms of their graphics. Because remember, we used to make fun of Face the Nation because they used to put Face the Nation like 7 times in the background of a guest. It was like Face the Nation, Face the Nation, Face the Nation. They've reduced it to 2. At least in this screen. So
because of us.
I think that's because of us. I think they've been watching, and we appreciate them listening to us.
Yeah, we do, and we
get
that they're embarrassed. They don't have to credit us. We're okay with that. Yeah,
no, they're not. Yeah.
We know.
Yeah.
So face the nation. Keep facing useful idiots.
That's right. All right. Well, moving on.
We got more from Chuckster.
More from Chuckster.
Welcome back. Data download time as we head into 2024. The culture wars are dominating the conversation right now as we continue to debate what kind of country we should become and how quickly that change should happen. Numbers from our most recent NBC News poll suggest the nation is pretty open to social change. And that possibly could give Democrats an advantage with some of these cultural issues among the national electorate. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Do we need to do more to increase social justice? It's a pretty popular expression of support overall. 70% of Americans agree with that. And believe it or not, there's not a ton of differences by party. 91% of Democrats agree with it, but 67%.
There's not a ton of differences by party. 91% of Democrats versus 50% of Republicans.
I love to know why someone would answer no on that one.
Yeah. But also, I just don't get why he thinks that that's not a significant difference.
Yeah, it's like he's like it's bipartisan. Yeah, it's 91%
bipartisan.
Democrats, 50% Republicans.
Yeah.
It's only a 40% margin. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a political race, we call that a squeaker. You know, if it was 91% to 50%.
Right.
Yeah.
Total squeaker. Yeah. I
Neck
can't.
and neck.
Neck and neck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of independents looks like the country as a whole. Half of Republicans believe we need to do more to increase social justice. We start to ask a little bit more. You start to see some divergence by party.
The other half don't, but whatever.
Right. Whatever. Yeah.
It's only 50%.
Yeah.
Should we be more tolerant and accepting of the LGBTQ community? Overall, that's 61%, slightly less than the social justice.
Okay, can I say something? I can't believe in 2023 the word tolerant is still being used. Like tolerant is what you use if like there's like noise going on outside your home, and the question is whether you can tolerate that noise because the noise is annoying. So can you tolerate? You don't say tolerant about human beings,
right? Or
it's
lactose. Like if you're tolerant of lactose, you don't throw up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that's what you know. But you don't like, for example, like would Chuck like it if there was a poll? Should we be more tolerant of overpaid cable news hosts?
Right, probably.
Right?
Not.
He wouldn't appreciate that, right? Because the presumption of that question is that someone like him needs to be tolerated and isn't already accepted.
Right.
So it's just such a biased question.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tolerance, like I can't believe that's still being used. That's so it's just so primitive. It's so it's like the basis of it's so reactionary is if you need to tolerate anyone else.
The framing of it, exactly. The framing of it is so biased in itself. And it's such a leading framing. I do like that as though the name for the culture, like the definition for the culture wars, : who do we tolerate? Yeah. So I'm sure the numbers would be higher if they were asked in a different way, by the way. Like if people should have rights.
Yeah. And should we not be hateful? I mean,
yeah, right.
It's just so it's a real blind spot. I'm surprised that it's still done. But anyway.
Here you see some divergence, right? Democrats and independents both have majorities who believe we should be more tolerant with this community. Republicans, however, an outlier with just 38.
But again, it's funny. It's like, what was it on the other one? It was 40 points difference. I guess this is 50 points, a little bit more different, a little differenter.
A lot of that driven by the trans issue of late. And in fact, on the issue of trans people, have we gone too far in accepting?
Okay, that's so ridiculous. That framing. Have we gone too far? It's so leading.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be like, have we not gone far enough?
Trans people, a plurality of the country agree with that statement that we've gone too far, 48%. Start to look at it by party, you see a big disparity that goes the other way. Just 19% Democrats believe that, but independents look like the nation overall. Nearly 80% of Republicans believe we have gone too far.
Yeah, the framing is really offensive. Like, I mean, you know, I don't want to minimize the debates that exist over, for example, you know, trans people in sports. You know, I think all these things, it's fair to debate all these things, obviously, but the framing as if it's a problem to accept people for who they are, and there are limits in how far you can go in accepting people, is really, really strange, and it shows it's biased, and it means you can't have a poll that's actually really serious because it just presumes so much inherent bias to begin with.
Right.
On that. But I want to give you a historical nugget here to keep something in mind, and it's the historical trend line of the legalization of same-sex marriage. Less than 20 years ago, it was 2-to-1 opposition to same-sex marriage. And in less than 20 years, those numbers completely flipped. And in something in our poll, we noticed if you knew somebody who was gay 20 years ago, you were more likely to support same-sex marriage. If If you know somebody who is trans, you're more likely to support an openness to accepting on that as well.
An openness to accepting.
Strange poll. Strange poll.
Strange
Very
poll, yeah.
strange poll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
should we shift from domestic to foreign
Let's
policy?
do it.
Let's
Let's
do
do
it.
it.
What do we got? We got some more Face the Nation
So
from Russia
basically,
with love.
yeah. So basically, the shows have kind of moved on from Ukraine because whatever, it's only a proxy war with a nuclear armed power, and
Right.
but now Ukraine is supposedly preparing for a new counteroffensive, and Russia has been in recent days has launched a really deadly barrage of missiles that killed civilians, and so Ukraine's back at least for 1 week on the Sunday news show. So this is Face the Nation reporting from Ukraine.
A front line that might be about to expand dramatically as Ukraine's defense minister announced that the counteroffensive is about ready for launch. His words, just waiting for God's will and the weather. NATO announcing that 98% of the promised combat vehicles have been delivered, among them 230 tanks. But there are serious concerns, part of those leaked intelligence documents, over Ukraine's rapidly dwindling air defense systems. A question we put to senior defense official Alexei Danilov.
What can you tell us about that?
I can tell you that we are constantly working on this issue, he said. We're in great need of aircraft. We need a new means of anti-air defense if we want to be successful in this war. Analysts.
Yeah. So if CBS were covering this accurately, they mentioned those Pentagon leaks kind of in passing that they show that Ukraine needs more air defenses. What those leaks actually show is that we've been lied to constantly. Right. We've been told that Ukraine's on the march, that Ukraine has a strong chance of success. That's what Pentagon leaders have told us constantly. That's what the Biden administration has said constantly. Well, the Pentagon leaks show that actually privately, the Pentagon and U.S. intelligence agencies strongly doubt that Ukraine can have any success whatsoever, that they're running out of ammo, that we can't supply the ammo that they need, and that at best, Ukraine only has a very modest chance of success of winning any territory back. So given that, you think maybe one alternative that could be posited is, should we stop fighting and try to negotiate an end to this war? But that's not an option because Ukrainians have to keep sacrificing themselves for the proxy war. That's the U.S. policy. So that's not even considered. And so then it's a question of, can we get them a little bit more ammo to give them maybe a better chance? That's the only thing that's being considered. But the consequence is it just means sacrificing more Ukrainians for what? For, at best, what the Pentagon says are some very modest gains.
Right. And also, that it's a reminder of how little discussion there was about the content of the leaks. It was all about the leaker. And if the media were doing their job, they'd actually talk about the substance. It was
classic snitch journalism. Just like we saw with, Matt Taibbi and the Twitter files. It wasn't about the content of what he reported.
Right.
It was about them, trying to find any minor error that they could, which in many cases resulted in them finding errors that weren't actually even errors. But anyway, same thing here. Not really about the content of the leaks, only about the leaker or about what leaks could be used to advance a pro-proxy war line. So, for example, sending in more weapons, which the U.S. can't really even supply because they've been running out. So it's and look, and just compare how often we heard about Ukraine for so long, but now because Ukraine's not doing so well, now it sort of recedes into the background. It's not nearly the story on these networks that it used to be.
Right. Awful. Just disposable. They're disposable. That's how we're treating them.
Say if Russian fighter jets and bombers are able to operate freely over the skies in Ukraine, it could drastically change the course of the war.
It's impossible to overestimate the importance of air defense systems in safeguarding cities like here in Dnipro and the capital, Kyiv, where defense officials say 11 missiles and 2 drones were intercepted in the latest wave of attacks.
And by the way, this is just a reminder. This is the reporter who was blown away by the blonde hair and blue-eyed nature of these people. Remember? one of the
Yes,
the
he said
handful.
we're used to scenes of refugees in third world countries, like Afghanistan, but here in this white European country, he was startled to see similar scenes.
Yeah.
And amazingly, he was kept on the job. They didn't pull him
Right.
from the Ukraine beat, because you're allowed to be, whatever. You're allowed to whitewash Nazis, and you're allowed to exhibit open racism, I guess, if it means pushing the pro-proxy war line. That's
Right.
how propagandized this whole war has been.
Oh, well, let's go back to domestic policy, shall we? This is a painful one. This is a painful clip. It's with Bernard.
Senator President Biden announced his campaign officially for re-election this week. He would be 86 years old by the end of his second term. You're 1 year older than President Biden. Is his age something that voters should consider in 2024?
Well, I think when you look at a candidate, you consider a lot. I think age is one thing. I think experience is another thing. I think your record that you have established is another thing. But to my mind, Dana, when you put it all together, what you have to look at is, what does the candidate stand for? Which side are they on? Are they on the side of the billionaire class, or are they on the side of working people? Look, it is no great secret I ran against Biden. No great secret that he and I have strong differences of opinion. But when we live in a nation where you have a major political party, the Republican Party, where many, not all, but many of their leadership doesn't even believe in democracy. They maintain the myth that Trump won the last election. They're trying to keep people from voting. They're trying to deny women the right to control their own bodies. So that's a whole issue out there. If you believe in democracy, you want to see more people vote, not fewer people vote, I think the choice is pretty clear, and that choice is Biden. And second of all, what I do...
So this is Bernie basically abandoning his whole working class mandate. It is. I mean, because he's basically saying that he's not going to push Biden on anything that he cares about because of the Republican threat to democracy. And his response to that is to, not demand anything, not try to extract any concessions. He's just handing over his endorsement already to Biden before there's even a primary.
Right.
And that's not a revolution. He promised a revolution. He's not leading a revolution right here.
It's not even reform.
Yeah.
It's not even democracy. I mean, talk about democracy, which he is claiming to care about. Democracy means you have primaries.
Yeah, and you have debates on issues.
Right.
And he's
That's what I mean. Right. You have debates. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's folding. He's folding already.
Right.
It doesn't take away from all the good work he's done, throughout his career, and how he helped, move the country forward in so many ways. Like, for example, putting universal health care really at center stage in the 2016 primaries. Of course, this wasn't just him. This is, years of grassroots struggle, but he carried that forward, and that's a real achievement. But I think he's abandoning it here. I think he's taking it as far as he's going to take it.
Yeah. And, he used to understand, and he probably still does understand, but he's made calculations that in order to defeat Republicans, you actually need to be providing the people with things so that they can say, don't vote for those guys because they're not going to give you these things that we're giving you.
Yeah, which he actually is about to say. So let's hear him say it.
Believe is the Democrats and the president have got to be stronger on working class issues. They've got to make it clear that we believe in a government that represents all, not just the few. Take on the greed of the insurance companies, the drug companies, Wall Street, all the big money interests, and start delivering for working class people. You do that, I think Biden is going to win in a landslide.
Yeah,
Right,
except
but-
except when you, as the progressive, are already endorsing them, they
Right,
have no incentive to do any of that. They're who's going to push them to do that. They already have your vote.
Right.
And
That's
that's
what
what
I
he's
meant when
missing.
I said he used to understand that. Like, I think he used to kind of understand that he could try to leverage. But, I was talking about this, someone, they were like, they don't care. Biden doesn't care.
No.
So
No.
maybe it doesn't even have an effect. But
Well,
at least he
certainly-
could pressure him into lying.
Well, Biden certainly doesn't care because he already has his vote. And if he has Bernie's vote, then he knows he has the vote of many of Bernie's supporters. So, yeah. And Bernie, who knows? Bernie maybe thinks that being on the inside now will allow him to put forward some of the proposals that are really important to him. I haven't seen much in the way of results of that strategy. I know on the National Labor Relations Board, there's been some good people put on there. You can point to that.
Yeah.
But what has Bernie gotten for caving so quickly? I haven't seen much in the way of results.
We'll find out in 50 years from declassified docs. Yeah. All right. We got more from the domestic front. Let's hear about what people think about Biden, shall we?
Numbers represent people, and while Democratic leaders are rallying behind the president, there's a definite trend. So we went to Pennsylvania to find out what voters in the state that helped deliver Biden the presidency think about him now.
From the Pennsylvania state capitol in Harrisburg to historic Philadelphia and the suburbs, Democrats are divided on whether or not President Biden should be running again.
You voted for Biden.
I did.
He announced this week. What was your reaction?
Regret, disappointment, frustration.
While it's very early in the race, that disappointment and frustration was expressed again and again by young voters we talked to.
I think I would go for Biden, but obviously I would prefer a fresher candidate.
He announced this week. Were you excited by that?
Not particularly. I'm more interested in a progressive candidate.
Despite having voted for Biden last time, 21-year-old Elena Symes couldn't point me to anything that would make her want to vote for him again, except...
What do you like about Joe Biden?
That he's not Trump.
Yeah.
The hesitation for many is exactly what the polls say: age.
I would say that he's way too old and very unfit to be president.
And when you say he's too old, do you worry about his health or the ideas just too old?
We want to see new ideas as a young generation.
But don't tell that to 32-year-old Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta.
We have seen really the type of leader who I think not only deserves 4 more years, but frankly, I will say the American people, we need him to finish the job.
As a Biden surrogate, he's working to downplay voters' fears about the president's age and rally them around his candidacy.
And I think for the next year and a half of this campaign, I think our job as Democrats is to really push back against this narrative that there are two equally competent and two equally accomplished executives in terms of the former president and the current president.
At the Southwest Senior Center in Philadelphia, Biden's age is an asset, not a liability.
Do you talk politics here?
We talk everything here. It's life.
What do you talk about when you talk politics?
We're talking about Medicare, we're talking about Medicaid, we're talking about Social Security, we're talking about living arrangements.
So when you think about your lives and all those issues, who's your candidate?
Well, that to me is a no-brainer. That would be Biden.
The Biden campaign seems to be on more solid ground with older voters we spoke to, a group that helped propel Biden to victory in 2020.
Do you worry at all about his age?
No, not at all, no. As long as he's getting the job done and doing what he's supposed to do and in the right state of mind, that's what should be required.
It's not just the age gap Biden needs to worry about, it's the geography. It wasn't really the cities that powered Biden to victory in 2020. It was the suburbs that really made the difference. So we went to Northampton County in the Lehigh Valley, a bellwether county that voted for Obama twice, then flipped to Trump in 2016, before going blue with Biden in 2020. Propelled by voters like Steve Davis, who aren't motivated by party, instead inspired or uninspired by candidates.
When you look at Biden, you voted for him in 2020. What gives you pause if you're having some sort of pause?
Well, obviously his age. And also getting the party together to accomplish something.
Comparison is what Biden is banking on, that voters
I'm already dreading that. Is the main issue in 2024 going to be age? Because
Well,
if so,
yeah.
that's gonna be pretty boring.
But it's good. I mean, what is Trump? How much younger than Biden is he? 1 year, 2 years? No, not one. I think he's pretty close.
Yeah, they're pretty close, but for some reason, Trump just has this strange physicality where, despite seemingly being pretty unhealthy, his diet is not really a model of health. Trump seems pretty indestructible, and he does seem to be more with it than Biden. But
yeah, cognitively, I think he does. Yeah.
But regardless, like, is this really what we're going to be discussing for the next year? Whether Biden is too old? Because no matter what you think about that issue, it's not really the top issue right now in the country. Is the age of Joe Biden?
Right.
There's so many other things, and if the test for Biden is just going to be, is he, cognitively competent? It's a pretty low bar.
Right. That is really pathetic. Yeah.
Wherever he's at, I don't engage with that kind of stuff because I just think it's not that important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is going to be a main issue. I think that's a preview of what we're going to be talking about for a long time. Is Biden too old?
And nothing that doesn't change, unlike policy.
Exactly.
You can't respond to that and change it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, someone who's very enthused about Joe Biden is his fellow Delaware resident, Chris Coons, Democratic senator from Delaware.
Mr. Pharma.
This campaign be like? Obviously, the last one was during COVID. He didn't have to go out a lot. Do you see him going out a lot? How will he handle this and a general election debate?
Joe Biden loves campaigning. He loves going to a coffee shop, a union hall, a fire station. I've seen no one in politics in my time who's more energized.
He also loves going before Wall Street executives. There was just a headline in the Financial Times that Biden is seeking something like $1 billion from Wall Street donors. And they already had a event right after he announced his candidacy. They had an event for Wall Street executives. So that's also where he loves going.
Right. And of course, he famously promised his donors behind closed doors that nothing would fundamentally change.
That's right.
When he was running in 2020. Yeah.
By connecting with voters, with average people than Joe Biden. His campaigns aren't generated rallies with a plane with his name on it behind him. They're connecting with
people there because no one actually wants to come out to see him. So he likes to go. He likes to basically ambush people at their work in a coffee shop. I'm here.
Yeah. Give me some ice cream.
People. He frankly complained in 2020 that he didn't like being disconnected from folks. On the day of his inauguration, the fact there was nobody there because of a pandemic made him feel like, I want to get out there and connect. He's been doing.
They kept him in a basement.
Yeah.
Throughout the 2020 campaign, and they loved it because
they totally loved it. Yeah.
That allowed them to avoid scrutiny of his cognitive ability.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
That also allowed some awkward. It allowed them to avoid some awkward encounters, like when he encounters young women and gropes them.
Right.
So this was a great thing for them to keep him locked in a basement.
Yeah, it was a gift.
That as president, he'll be doing that as our candidate.
Wow, well, I'm inspired.
That's very inspiring. He's going to go to a bunch of coffee shops.
All right, well, here's a really funny clip. So this is the former Biden White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, who has a show now on MSNBC, interviewing her former boss, the former White House chief of staff, Ron Klain. And this is happening not on a state TV network, but on a supposed, free independent network, MSNBC. And so this is Jen Psaki interviewing Ron Klain. And guess what?
I personally think this argument.
Guess what they're going to conclude about whether Joe Biden is up for the job?
I don't know. Don't tell us. Let us be surprised. The suspense is killing me.
I personally think this argument over the president's age is overwrought, in part because part of the argument is his experience. And also, by the way, Donald Trump is 76 years old and he's currently the front runner. But it's clearly a favorite argument of Republican candidates. I mean, Nikki Haley suggested the president won't live for through the next 5 years. So are there moments? I know the president's response is just watch me.
Yeah.
But are there moments where it's beyond the pale where there needs to be a different response?
Look, I think the response is the president doing his job. And I think we all see that every day, the rigors with which the president works, things like his trip to Ukraine, which was an incredibly arduous and dangerous trip that the president took. I think
I love that. I love they're still going with that. That
Right.
Biden flying to Ukraine was arduous and dangerous, as if he daringly flew into a war zone. When in reality, they told Russia in advance they were going. This is the part they'll bury because it's so embarrassing. But they told Russia, hey, Biden's going to Ukraine, and he didn't fly into Ukraine. He flew first to Germany and then Poland and took a train. So they're still going with this thing that he was like somehow bravely parachuted into Ukraine, into a war zone. And that's where, by the way, they also had that choreographed march with that choreographed scene with him and Zelensky walking down the street, and they set off air sirens as if to make it look as if Ukraine was under attack. And then
so
this guy in CNN was like, oh yeah, this was weird. Like all of a sudden we haven't heard air sirens in days, and we happen to just hear them now that Biden and Zelensky are walking.
I wonder what it is.
I wonder what it is. So, but of course, because Jen Psaki is interviewing her former boss, and both of them formerly worked for Biden, we're not going to get details like that.
Yeah.
answer the mail on the questions about his age. I understand why voters ask it. Voters asked it in 2020 and decided that he was the right person for the job. I think the same thing will happen in 2024. Not only is the president up to the job and doing the job, but frankly, the choice between Joe Biden, either Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, is a stark choice. And I think issues of who stands for what and the record and what he'll do going forward, those are going to overcome any questions about age.
Notice that he can't actually mention anything, what his record achieved. It's just the record. But he can't actually name the policies. He can't say, well, he gave people this, he gave people that, he canceled student loan debt. No. He can't get into any specifics. It's like the most unenthusiastic, meaningless endorsement.
And he did do a choreographed trip to Ukraine.
That will give him that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But what a shocker that we're not going to get some actual critical scrutiny on a show hosted by a former Biden spokesperson interviewing Biden's former chief of staff.
Right. Who saw that coming?
Funny. It's so funny. All right. Well, keeping on the theme of whether Biden's up for the job through the eyes of his top allies, here is Senator Chris Van Hollen.
About the issue of access, because you mentioned the president being out there, being vigorous. He hasn't done a serious sit down with one of the major newspapers. Our polling shows that 76% of people say he needs to be holding regular press conferences. He's not doing that. The New York Times noted this week he has held the fewest news conferences since President Reagan. The Axios put it this way: the White House is basically hiding Biden as he auditions for another term. Does that lack of access feed this narrative that he's not up to the job and his staff is basically keeping him behind closed doors, and that's how they plan to run the campaign, much as they did during 2020 because we had to because of COVID?
Well, Shannon, the president's been doing what he should be doing, which is going out around the country and meeting with people and talking about the results from his first 2 years. He's come to Maryland more than any other president in my memory. He's been there multiple times talking about the infrastructure.
Katie, you were asking about his record. That's on his record. He's gone to Maryland more than any other president in recent memory.
Imagine how many coffee shops he got under his belt while there.
That's big.
Yeah, that is good. You're right. I should have waited. I shouldn't have said that. Now I have no leg to stand on.
Yeah, so he's basically, and Maryland's right next to DC, so he's taking
a real schlep.
Yeah, it's like he's done like a 30-minute drive or whatever it is. Good job.
Yeah.
Great job, great job, Joe.
A modernization bill, creating new tunnels, making trips faster for commuters. So I think what he's doing is.
Wait, Biden made trips faster for commuters? Where? Where? Not in Los Angeles, where I am, by the way. Man, oh man, the traffic here. Woof. And then you take the train from wherever to wherever the train times are in this country.
Right. But we can't have high-speed rail because that would be competing. That would be competing with China.
Yeah, no, that would be dignifying.
Right.
That would be dignifying China's achievements, and we can't acknowledge that. So we have to pretend as if
Right.
Our system is superior. Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're gonna run they're gonna run in that like your commutes are faster under Joe Biden. Is anyone gonna like find that?
Yeah.
Is that gonna resonate with anyone?
Your
Because
commutes are not faster on if you're riding a derailed train, though.
that's
Let's be
yes.
honest about that.
Yeah. And then breaking the strikes of the
Right.
workers trying to get better conditions.
Which helped enable the derailments.
Mm-hmm.
Is going around the country and talking directly to people. I know the Washington Press Corps always wants to hear more from the president. They heard from him just the other day when the South Korean president was here, and they asked him a lot of questions, including about the age issue.
So let's talk about debates, too, because there are Democrats challenging the president within the primary. RFK Jr. comes in at our poll in 19%. I mean, that's a hefty number. He's not the only one who says they should have some primary debates.
I think he has an obligation to democracy to debate anyway. And I would hope that he does that.
Put Joe Biden up on that stage with Bobby Kennedy, who's challenging him, and Marianne Williamson, and whoever steps up to the plate, and let's have a discussion, yo.
I'm going to bleep on Sunday morning. Why not?
Well, that's up to the president's campaign.
You know, I don't know if you saw that, Katie, but the Chiron said that show that Charlemagne was on is called The Brilliant Idiots.
Wow.
Yeah.
Copyright infringement.
Very close, useful idiots. We might have a lawsuit on our hands, everybody.
We may.
Yeah, shots fired.
Shots fired. But Charlemagne, we invite you onto the show to defend your choice.
I mean, this is early. He just announced his re-election campaign. These are decisions every campaign makes, both with respect to the primary and in the general. I think the president's going to keep his eye on the ball, which is winning the general election. That's what's important for the country. What they decide to do in the primary, only time will tell.
Okay, so
it can't really defend it, right? So he's just dodging and repeating what we already know, which is that this is a decision that presidents will make, and he's trying to win the general. But it's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing that you have to, of course, go to Fox News to hear this question. Why haven't any of the Sunday morning news shows, except for this week, George Stephanopoulos' show, that's the only one we've seen Marianne Williamson on. Why isn't she on? Why isn't Bobby Kennedy on? These people are running against Joe Biden.
Eye on the ball, which means squelch debate.
Right.
Don't do the minimal thing required in any kind of healthy democracy, which is debate your opponents and present your case. Eye on the ball, avoid all challengers, and then time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah,
after we avoid debates and win the primaries, time will tell whether or not we'll have debates with the people we've already defeated. Time will tell. It's a mystery.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say a lot of people, especially watch the show, when I say that there should be a debate, people then weigh in, they give their opinion on the person. So they're like, well, that's because Marianne Williamson sucks. Well, you're entitled to that opinion. The question is, do you really think that we shouldn't have debates? I don't really get it. But that's just me.
I agree. The minimal thing, you got to have debates, no matter how you feel. Because, so many times in the past, these debates have produced some really helpful moments. Like, I think the presence of Mike Gravel and Dennis Kucinich
definitely,
and Tulsi Gabbard in these debates, no matter how you feel about all these people individually in their positions, they played a positive role. And if you don't want to have,
talked about things that others would not.
You got to have debates. They're really entertaining too. I mean, if we don't have debates, they take away a big source of entertainment. The only thing that makes these primaries somewhat tolerable. Yeah. So
right. That's true. Yeah.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah. Time will tell. Yeah. I'm going to say that whenever anyone asks me a question that I don't really want to respond to, time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, recently it was admitted, and we've covered this on Useful Idiots, that Mike Morrell, the former deputy head of the CIA, he admitted that he organized that statement written by a number of former intelligence officials claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was just a Russian information operation, which then enabled the censorship of the New York Post reporting on that story, Mike Morell admitted that he wrote that statement at the behest of the Biden campaign. And specifically, he said that he was contacted by Anthony Blinken. This is in the weeks leading up to the 2020 election. So now here is Ron Johnson accusing Blinken of lying under oath about his role in the Hunter Biden story, and specifically whether or not he was in contact with Hunter Biden. So here he is on Fox News.
What is interesting, Marie, and here's a little news for you. Anthony Blinken finally did come in and sit down for a voluntary transcribed interview in December of 2020 because he wanted to be Secretary of State. And now, because of more information that's come out, we know that he lied bold-faced to Congress about never emailing Hunter Biden. My guess is he told a bunch of other lies that hopefully we'll be able to bring him and his wife back in, tell them to preserve their records. You cannot trust Joe Biden. You cannot trust Hunter Biden. You can't trust the Biden family. You can't trust so many of the people that they have surrounded themselves with. I mean, these made men. I basically agree with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, that was
it is. Here's the problem, Maria.
Words.
What do you do when you have, in effect, co-conspirators of the Biden family inside the agencies, inside our intelligence agencies, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and you have the political party, the Democrats, who couldn't care less, have no interest whatsoever in the corruption that is being uncovered bit by bit as we pull back the layers of the onion here, as we peel them back.
So just to be clear, you just said you believe Anthony Blinken lied to you under oath.
Yes, he did. He said he did not email Hunter Biden, and now we have those emails. We also know that his wife, using her private email address when she was a employee of the State Department, was basically a conduit between her husband and Hunter Biden as well. So again, I think there's so much more to uncover here. There's so much more investigation. He needs to be subpoenaed. I don't have that subpoena power. He ought to come in just voluntarily if he wants to proclaim his innocence. I doubt he'll do that, but he must and she must preserve their records, their personal emails. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need to.
So shots fired. More email document talk, which is always exciting for the Washington political class. And Ron Johnson, does he have a record of saying some really silly things? Yes, he does. So is it possible that he's off base here? Yes, it is. But I think it's newsworthy that a senator is accusing a Secretary of State of lying under oath, which is, that's a serious charge.
I do want to give him credit unrelatedly, but I think we can, this doesn't disqualify him, but we should give him credit for being a pretty odious politician. And he actually voted against. He's a Lutheran. He's not Catholic, but he sided with the Catholic Church in opposing this so-called Child Victims Act. Who does that? Like sides with the perpetrators of sexual abuse, not with the victims. Because he asked himself, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And it side with the abusers. Yeah.
And my broader point here is, I do think it's so unfortunate that Mike Morell admitted that he interfered in the 2020 election, just like he interfered in the 2016 election when he claimed that Trump was a Russian asset. And there's just no media coverage whatsoever, in part because Mike Morell, he literally works for CBS News as an analyst, and he hosts a podcast. So not only are the media spreading intelligence lies, they're employing these liars as their pundits. And it just makes for any critical scrutiny of this story, it makes it impossible. And for people asking, well, why do we care if the targets are Republicans? Well, again, in 2020, the Russiagate playbook was used against Bernie Sanders, just like it's being used now against those black leftists who were recently indicted for allegedly being Russian agents. I mean, this is enabling a very McCarthyite climate, no matter who the targets are. And if you have principles, you care about, your principles, not who is using them for their own political ends. That's just what it comes down to. Anyway, it's an interesting story, and Johnson accusing Blinken of lying is an outgrowth of that. But I think the main story here is that Mike Morell admitted that he wrote that statement at the behest of the Biden campaign, and the story got a little bit of attention, but now it's kind of gone away.
Yeah, right. It should be something that people care about. But if you say that, they're just like, oh, you love Trump.
That's right.
But Trump, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been great. We have another clip we didn't get to, so we're going to throw that into Thursday Throwdown. It's a good one. It's about the FBI.
Yes, stay tuned for a thrilling episode this week of the Thursday Throwdown, which you can get by subscribing at usefulidiots.substack.com. And you also can join us at usefulidiots.locals.com. And join us now on the Callin app, where we'll start the after party right now.
Yeah, and the link is in the description. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. See you next week.